What is up, Hexicans and Pulsinators? Thanks for joining me. I have another Pulsechain update for you. So this is 5 minutes ago, breaking news. The GitLab has been updated, and two specific Pulsechain updates. They fixed peering issues introduced in version 2.0.0, and they add trusted checkpoints for Pulsechain. Technically, not really sure what this means, but whenever we see updates on the testnet, it's good. So now we're at version 2.1.1. And another just general topic. Jory Hex tweeted out the best crypto community. Two things, guys. You got to keep in mind the average Hex stake length is 8 years, right? A lot of people are staked for 10 and 15 years, and that gives them skin in the game and kind of makes the community destined to last. Also, the good thing about the community is Pulsechain was created because of Hex and the terrible fees on Ethereum. So you got to think we're launching with an already massive community, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And look at the projects similar to Pulsechain with worse tokenomics that succeeded with no community at day zero. Harmony 1, Binance Smart Chain had a big community with Binance, Polygon had no community, and all these projects, they flourished. So AVAX as well, but we already have a community at day one, so that's huge. Coinbase has sued the SEC, and a note on that, this is Gary Gensler, chairman of the SEC, right? He's suing Coinbase. He has a lawsuit against XRP. He's saying now that everything is a security in crypto. Listen to what he said when he was a 2018 MIT instructor. It's quite the opposite.
And in many other jurisdictions, that 3/4 of the market are not ICOs or not what would be called securities. Even in the US, Canada, and Taiwan, the three jurisdictions that follow something similar to the Howey test that we've talked about, 3/4 of the market is non-securities. It's just a commodity, a cash crypto. So you'll hear
3/4 of the cryptocurrencies are commodities. They're cash assets. They're not securities. He goes on to say there's no legal matter in determining that these cryptos are securities. But now, fast forward a few years later, keep in mind this guy is the head of the SEC and he has over $100 million net worth. Should our regulators be that wealthy? Probably not. But he has a history on Wall Street. He has many connections, and maybe that has a reason as to why he's done a full 180. So Pulsechain testnet info site from Richard Hart, 24 billion in liquidity, 8 billion in 24-hour volume. Granted, these are just testnet values. The price of wrapped Pulse is already at 100x gain, and PulseX is at about a 28x gain. That does not mean that the token is going to launch at this price, guys. On the testnet, people can do whatever, but it does give us a similar idea. These are massive multiples for launch. I've never been on a project at launch, but I know in the last bull run, if you got into any legitimate ICO, it would launch at a minimum 10x. I didn't, but this is just what I've heard from big influencers that had. Another update from Richard Hart. Capella Shanghai support's coming to testnet version 4. He tweeted this out this morning. And this is the Ethereum fork, Capella Shanghai. It's a hard fork occurring to the execution layer and consensus layer on Ethereum. Upgrade focuses on finalizing the merge for Ethereum to go proof of stake, enabling validators to withdraw their staked Ether. Now, Pulsechain is a fork of Ethereum, and that makes sense why some people have hypothesized he's waiting for this Capella Shanghai update, and that could maybe make sense if you look at this. There's really great Pulsechain news. Withdrawals are coming to testnet v4. So if you stake your Pulse tokens, and you need 32 million Pulse tokens, which I think was about a $10,000 sacrifice to be a validator, and it wouldn't make sense if you couldn't withdraw your tokens that you validate, and that's because Ethereum hadn't really finalized that yet. Now they have, and that's coming to Pulsechain. If you guys made it this far in the video, comment how long you think until launch. Is it a week? Is it another 2 weeks? The meme. Or is it another 2 months? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I want to leave you with this great clip from Richard Hart. It's an interviewee that is very open-minded, and I wouldn't call him a fan of Richard Hart, but a lot of the interviews Richard does are very abrasive, and I think his best interviews are when he's talking to someone that has an open mind and asks good questions, and that's this guy for sure. Take a listen.
Cryptocurrency is funny. People don't understand it at all, but they think they do. And that includes the developers. That includes the crypto personalities. No one, almost no one actually understands what's going on. So unless you understand reflexive systems and memes and margin, and you're just like, nobody knows what's really going on. So if you ask anyone what coins would be in the top 10 right now, no one would get it. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't. If you ask someone in 2000 and let's call it 11, like when I got into Bitcoin, and you said, okay, what is the top 10 market cap going to look like 10 years later? You would have never thought of stable coins ever, because why would anyone buy that? The dollar sucks. We're trying to build something to beat the dollar. So why would you buy something that is tied to the dollar, so it goes down in value just as much and doesn't pay you any yield and has extra counterparty risk? That's all the opposite of why crypto was invented. You would never, ever guess that there would be multiple billion-dollar stablecoins. You'd never guess that. You would never guess that the world's richest guy would, in his free time, shitpost and promote an insecure cryptocurrency, which is Dogecoin. Dogecoin is actually not secure. There isn't enough hash rate to defend it against profitable 51% attacks. And the node software that you run to be the network, right? So it's just a fork of Bitcoin, an old, unupdated fork of Bitcoin, or fork of Litecoin, really, which is a fork of Bitcoin. So it's a fork of a fork. The node software even disagrees with what the current state of the network is, depending on which piece of software running and where. You're like, that's not good. You can't have a consensus network that's like falling out of consensus with itself. So the nodes are falling over. And you're like, you're just, you would never guess that.
Of what you're raising now is that in preparing for this discussion today, you've already covered 3 of the points that I was going to talk to you about.
Oh, lol.
I can't believe it. So
I'm killing your questions just outright, bro. before I know
that's actually
them.
reassuring, because I thought, I wonder if he wants to talk about this. So I've got like 15 questions, and
Yeah, you talk about anything, man.
Just a guide or a discussion. But can I first dive into this divide within the crypto community? So I am in a bit further down going to talk about your interview with Harry Dent, because mate, that thing was epic. And
Thank you.
Actually, I'll go right into it now.
All right.
So first of all, it was really heated, and credit to you. I think many fans in the crypto community like you for being very outspoken, telling the truth, being creative, mining full blocks of Bitcoin in the early days. But one of the strong points for me, if I may, that I really enjoyed with that is that you didn't lose your cool. So you, essentially, to the viewers out there, if you haven't seen the interview with Richard Hart and Harry Dent, you've got to see it, because I actually thought he was way out of line. I thought he completely lost control. But what it did is it made you look better, because you were just sitting there like a James Bond, taking everything that he was throwing at you. But what
Fat
you were
James
doing
Bond.
in life, well, what I saw was exactly what you're describing about people who don't understand that, and they get so angry. So, can I ask you?
The amount of wrong that he is so. When he first explained his concepts to me, I had to catch up on some things. So 30-year treasury bill or 30-year treasury bonds pay 2% interest. So I'm not an expert on garbage investments that pay 2% interest. I'm like, oh, okay. So you think you're going to make money buying something that pays 2%. So you look at the chart and you're like, okay, here's the yield rates of 30-year bonds over time. Start off at like 12% in the 70s, and then they just go down forever. And then you're like, well, you can't really set these interest rates negative, because people just will never buy them. They won't. They will not buy negative interest rates because it's a penalty instead of a benefit. So you're telling me that you're going to buy this thing that yields 2% in the hopes that they lower rates under 2%, so that the piece of garbage you bought that only yields 2% looks good, because the new thing might only yield 1.5. But if they raise rates at all to try and not overheat the economy with all-time highs and everything, then they raise rates a little bit, and the rates are actually naturally rising anyway. So his investment thesis is entirely wrong. Like he's betting that the chart will go from 2% to 0 when it can easily go to 8 or 10, and then he gets like nuked because his 2% paying bond is worth crap now, because you can just go get a new one instead of his and get 3 times the yield. It's 6%.
So why was he so angry? Why was he screaming?
It's not. I have a ton of friends that are Asperger's light, but they don't realize it. So basically, libertarianism is Asperger's light. And here's how it works. You have a finite amount of processing power in your brain. And you have to decide, or just luck will decide for you, how much of it's going to be emotional intelligence and your ability to empathize and feel and live the artsy fartsy style of life. And then you've got this other side, which is cold, hard, calculating, clinical. It doesn't care about the feels, the logical side. And you very rarely find someone that has both. So if you listen to Vitalik try and sell Ethereum, he's terrible at it. He absolutely sucks balls at selling Ethereum. I sell Ethereum way better than he does because I'm talking about the things that are interesting to everyone else because I understand everyone else. And he's just talking about the weird shit that's interesting to him that no one understands. So in his free time, he'll read, research reports on weird consensus styles. No one else is doing that shit because no one cares. We're all here to get rich. He's in some, tangent trying to figure out consensus networks. So basically like there's an area under the curve. So it's like torque and horsepower for a motor. You could have a lot of torque, but then if you run out of RPMs, you're not really going quick. Like a diesel engine has a ton of torque. You can pull trees out of the ground, but you're going to get smoked by anything that has more horsepower, because you've only got so many gears to do torque multiplication, etc. See, here I am going the other way. So this is what I'm talking about. I give you good analogies for why Vitalik doesn't sell his own product that well. And then I jump off into a weird tangent no one understands talking about horsepower and torque curves. So even I'm capable of getting Asperger's with it, right? So like the libertarian mind is that they know that they would be good people if they had lots of power, and then they assume everyone else would be too. And then they don't realize we've tried these experiments. So we've tried living without government. It sucks balls because everyone else turns evil quickly. And then you prefer the evil of the government to the evil of the gangs in the streets. And they just don't remember that because they weren't there for that. And so the same thing. So when he has an idea, like he thinks he understands the future with great certainty because he hasn't lost all of his money yet. He's probably only lost most of it. If you short or bearish on the market, you have lost all your money, period. Because the chart goes up and to the right because they keep printing money like it's going out of style. Now, if that chart was against a different pair, if it wasn't against the dollar, it might not go up and right to the forever. But since it is against the dollar, if the companies don't do any better at all and they just keep printing money out of thin air, the money has to go somewhere. And where do rich people put their money? Where they can get yield. And where can you get yield? Where everyone else is putting their money. It's a Keynesian beauty contest where everyone puts their money where everyone else thinks they're going to put their money. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and the prices keep going up. So
there's the liquidity when everyone's putting their money there.
Well, yeah, but liquidity, everyone talks about liquidity. Liquidity is that. If you're selling $100,000, do you need $1 trillion liquidity? No. What's your slippage on the $100,000? Nothing. So like everyone talks about liquidity, but the only people that make money on liquidity are the exchanges. Exchanges make money. So let's talk about volume. The exchanges make money on volume. Market makers money on volume. Do you, the retail trader, make money on volume? No.
You're making more on the move. No.
You cannot. There is no instrument for you to make money on volume. It's not even an instrument. You can't even find some weird derivative that has it. I've never even heard of it. So you can't make money on volume, but everyone talks about it because they just stick it on the chart because they don't know what else to stick there. There's a bunch of people out there that this is what I'm talking about. People that think that they're smart, but they're not. And I love this saying. It's like, if you're so smart, how come you ain't rich? Actually, that's actually a good saying. So the answer to that is you can be extremely smart and be not rich, but you're missing that other component. You're missing the component of direction and traction. So if you're really smart, you got a lot of horsepower, and you could sit there and spin your wheels. Now you're just burning up your tires. Okay. Well, what if you now decide to get traction? Okay. Well, now you're using your horsepower, putting it to the ground. Now you're moving. But what if you're moving in the wrong direction? The further you move along the wrong direction, the longer it's going to take to go back to go the right direction. So you're actually doing worse. So you need horsepower, which is intelligence. You need traction, which is, the skills to make that intelligence useful. And then you need direction, which is your strategy instead of tactics. 80% of your progress comes from 20% of your behaviors. 80% of your profit comes from 20% of your customers. 80% of your problems comes from 20% of your customers. 80% of what makes your company good comes from 20% of the features. The Pareto principle's everywhere. So your direction, you doing the right thing, right? So look at me. Okay, I want to make a big impact in the world. All right, where's the opportunity? Well, Everyone sacrifices all of their life for money, and money is just made up crap that's supposed to represent the scarcity of human time and resources. That's it. Okay, well, Satoshi invented an inferior money that I could invent a better one than. Why not do that? And then you're printing money out of thin air. Can you have a better business than printing money out of thin air? No, you can't. You can't have a better business than printing money out of thin air. So, and then how long have I been telling people this? I've been telling people this since I wrote SciVive years ago, and have been giving it out for free. And it's the same exact principles. It's like you want to get into a business that's scalable that can do a 10x, right? So I used to do consumer electronics retail. You open up a store. Now you want to make more money, got to open up another store. If you're doing installs, got to get a new storefront, got to open up new ads, got to hire new guys. And they don't show up on time. It's just a nightmare, right? So you want to do things that either ship boxes so you can scale, do 10x in a year, or you want to do digital things like software. So you go and you look at the richest people in the world, the Fortune 500, and you see that like 60 or 70% of the top 15 richest people in the world are software. Why? Because there's zero marginal cost to onboard a new customer. When you print money out of thin air, the profit margins are really good. So Bitcoin proved this. But the funny thing is, Bitcoin's actually inferior because they don't print money out of thin air. They burn billions of dollars of electricity, enriching electric companies to pollute the environment, and weird third world companies that make mining ships.